It has a huge impact on the committee. We will lose lives.
Why hundreds of rural hospitals are at risk of closing.
If we don't try, the bad guy wins.
The heroic actions to save frozen embryos just minutes after a bomb went off. And the brain drain happening in the U.S. as scientists go abroad. Welcome to Eye on Health, where we focus on stories that affect your physical and mental well-being. I'm Bradley Blackburn. We begin with the news that former President Joe Biden has stage 4 prostate cancer. The disease was detected after he started having symptoms. Screening for prostate cancer is not routinely recommended for men over age 70, according to the U.S. Preventive Disease Task Force, because potential harm may not outweigh the benefits. More than 313,000 new cases of prostate cancer will be diagnosed in the U.S. this year, and more than 35,000 men will die, according to the American Cancer Society. The president and his family are said to be reviewing treatment options with his physicians. Natalie Brand has more from the White House.
Former President Biden posted on social media a picture of himself and the former First Lady, writing, "Cancer touches us all. Like so many of you, Jill and I have learned that we are strongest in the broken places. Thank you for lifting us up with love and support." Biden's personal office released a statement Sunday saying the 82-year-old had been diagnosed with an aggressive form of prostate cancer that has spread to the bone.
When a cancer spreads to the bones, it's defined as being metastatic disease. We don't know how effective that is in terms of how many bone lesions he has, so we don't know the extent of that. But what we do know is that that makes it a very aggressive form of cancer.
Doctors evaluated Mr. Biden following the discovery of a small nodule in his prostate after he was seen for increased urinary symptoms.
Many of the medical therapies are quite effective these days and give patients longevity, even at 82 with high-risk prostate cancer. Depends how sensitive this cancer is genetically.
For former President Biden, cancer research and finding a cure was a personal mission. He launched a national cancer moonshot initiative inspired in large part by his late son, Beau, who died of brain cancer.
We can end cancer as we know it. This is a presidential White House priority.
Biden first started the moonshot work while serving as former President Barack Obama's vice president. Mr. Obama, in a statement, said nobody has done more to find breakthrough treatments for cancer in all its forms than Joe. Biden's former vice president, Kamala Harris, called him a fighter. Natalie Brand, CBS News, the White House.
A baby named KJ, born with a rare genetic disorder, is the first person in the world to be successfully treated with a tailor-made gene therapy. CBS News chief medical correspondent Dr. John LaPook spoke to KJ's family about their nearly year-long journey.
Soon after KJ Muldoon was born last summer, the baby was diagnosed with CPS1 deficiency, a rare genetic disorder that is fatal for about half the infants born with it.
What KJ was missing was an enzyme, essentially something that was responsible for breaking down toxic ammonia or a toxic item that's building up in his blood.
Until now, the only long-term treatment that worked had been a liver transplant. Instead, doctors at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia told KJ's family they could try something never done before. Use a technology called CRISPR to find the one uniquely mutated gene out of 20,000 in his little body and fix it.
I remember we talked with the care team during that conversation, and I had said, we fought really hard to get him here. And now that he is here, I want to give him the opportunity to fight for himself.
KJ received 3 infusions to his liver earlier this year, and he's been gaining weight and thriving. 20,000 genes in the body, 3 billion letters. This was a single defective letter?
Yes. Yes. It's amazing that it can work, right? It's really amazing.
Doctors Rebecca Aarons-Nicholas and Kiran Musunuru are part of KJ's medical team.
In 6 months, we were able to actually make the drug, the gene editing therapy, specifically for this patient, get approval from the FDA to actually administer it to the patient and give it to the patient.
KJ's parents, Nicole and Kyle, are looking forward to his first birthday in August and having him home in the coming weeks.
If it's a rainy Sunday, sitting on the couch watching a movie with all of us and not the 5 of us plus KJ's in the hospital. The little moments that you probably don't think are as important when you know that you're missing a piece of your family, I'm looking forward to that.
So far, there have been no serious side effects, but doctors are monitoring him closely. Dr. John LaPook, CBS News, New York.
You may not be able to get a COVID-19 vaccine this fall, even if you want one. FDA officials say they need to do more testing on boosters for healthy people between the ages of 6 months and 64 years old, and have not given a timeline for when that testing may be completed. The shot will still be available for seniors, people with underlying medical conditions, and others at high risk, including pregnant women. FDA Commissioner Martin McCary defended the change during a Senate hearing.
This is a reasonable time to check in and look at clinical trial data, given how different it is. By the way, America doesn't want COVID boosters.
CBS News medical contributor Dr. Celine Gounder says this runs counter to promises made by Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy.
We had heard Secretary Kennedy say, we're not going to take away your vaccines, we're going to be super transparent. And in fact, what is happening is people are going to lose access to vaccines.
A University of Oxford study found between 2021 and 2022, COVID-19 was the 8th leading cause of death in Americans under 20 years old. A new report says hundreds of rural hospitals are in danger of closing because they can no longer afford to stay open. The main reason, insurance companies pay rural hospitals much less than their big city counterparts for the same services. Here's Janet Shamlian.
We were there as workers covered the emergency room signs at Midcoast Medical Center in Trinity, Texas. The sight of medical workers leaving for the last time, signaling this is one of the latest rural hospitals to shut its doors.
I think how sad it is.
Marjorie Polvino runs the hospital board.
It has a huge impact on the committee. We will lose lives. 400 people a month come here.
In the East Texas piney woods, Midcoast was more than a building. It was a lifeline where babies were born and where the heart of Kathy Courtney's 90-year-old husband was restarted, saving his life.
How many times have you used this facility recently?
I'd say about 6 times in the last 14 months.
The closure, hospital officials tell us, was driven by the same factors that have closed other rural hospitals. Low reimbursement rates from elderly patients' Medicare and Medicaid coverage, which made up most of the hospital's budget. Hospitals in urban areas get significantly more reimbursement from their patients who have private insurance, which tends to pay more. Republican proposed cuts to Medicaid could leave more than 8.5 million people uninsured and force even more rural hospitals to close. A new report finds almost 750 rural hospitals are at risk of closing. Courtney's husband is now home and doing well, but the 87-year-old isn't sure she could drive that far if she or her husband of 65 years had another emergency.
When your husband had a heart attack recently, how long did it take you all to get here?
Probably 10 minutes, 15.
And if you had to go to the next closest hospital, how long would that have taken?
Over a half an hour.
Is that the difference between perhaps life and death?
I would say it is.
And there are impacts beyond healthcare. When these hospitals close, doctors and nurses often leave the community for jobs elsewhere. That impacts school districts and the real estate market. These hospitals are often the heartbeat of the community. Janet Shamlian, CBS News.
Investigators in Palm Springs, California are still piecing together the motives of the man who bombed a fertility clinic earlier this month. As Joy Benedict reports, quick thinking by a first responder in the moments after the attack prevented the destruction of far more than just a building.
The blast was felt for blocks.
This whole building exploded.
As debris from a car bomb outside a fertility clinic in Palm Springs leveled this building.
It was insane. I thought it was a massive earthquake.
But for a time, it also crippled the hope of couples throughout this community.
My first reaction was like, my embryos are there. Like what's going to happen to my embryos?
Thankfully, it was a thought that also went through the mind of Deputy Fire Chief Greg Lyle, who was on the scene.
I tried to pitch it that, there were hopes and dreams in there, and the fire department volunteered to go try and help.
Within minutes of the blast, he and a member of the bomb squad entered the building looking for cryogenic material, frozen embryos, eggs, anything that could help local families conceive.
We said, if we don't try, the bad guy wins. I didn't know what I was looking for, neither did he.
They realized upon entering the blast site that the freezers were too big to move, so they found a way to restore the power, keeping those dreams alive.
Received a text message later on that night from one of the personnel fire department thanking me for saving his embryos.
The Palm Springs Police Department tells me that although this clinic is clearly closed, the doctor has been able to continue seeing patients at a different location, so no one's treatment was disrupted by this blast. Joy Benedict, CBS News, Palm Springs, California.
Coming up, a device allows doctors to remotely manage a heart condition, and tips to stay safe in the sun this summer. Welcome back. The Trump administration has cut billions of dollars in funding for medical research. This has led to the loss of jobs for scientists and researchers here in the U.S. and has others worried they could be next. Earlier this year, more than 1,200 scientists responded to a poll by the journal Nature. 75% were considering leaving the U.S. for opportunities overseas. And other countries are looking to capitalize, with leaders in Canada, Europe, and even China offering jobs and funding to those who want more job security. One Australian think tank urged its government to act, calling the U.S. brain drain a, quote, once-in-a-century brain gain opportunity. For more on this, I sat down with Dr. Celine Gounder, a CBS News medical contributor and editor-at-large for public health at KFF Health News. So, Dr. Gounder, we are hearing about more American researchers who are taking their research to other countries. Is it fair to call this a brain drain, and what's behind it?
I think it is fair to call this a brain drain. What we're seeing is the slow unraveling of the system that made the United States a scientific superpower over the last almost century now. And so we're seeing defunding of medical research. We're seeing the politicization of peer review. So that's where scientists evaluate each other's science for funding. And we're seeing ideological attacks on what people can study or not. And as a result, many people are looking to opportunities overseas where they can get a job and do the research they want to do.
Have we ever seen anything like this happen before?
Yes, except we were on the positive end of the stick at that time. This was back in the 1930s and 40s. Perhaps the most famous example of this was Albert Einstein. But you had many scientists leaving Germany, Italy, Eastern Europe, Russia, coming to the United States, escaping fascism, and coming here for better opportunities, a better life. And that really helped put on steroids the growth of science here in the United States.
If our researchers move abroad, what is at stake?
We have had an advantage over other countries, whether that's with respect to our economy, our national security, our public health, very much because of the science that we have relied on. After World War II, there was a very intentional effort to have government invest in science, understanding that it would fuel all three: national security, public health, and the economy. And if we step away from that commitment, it is going to put us at a disadvantage relative to other countries that choose to invest in those places and who absorb our scientists.
We have a robust commercial market here in the U.S. Why can't companies just pick up the slack and fund this research?
The role of government here has been to essentially de-risk science. So in other words, doing the risky science before it is far enough along for a company to pick it up and turn it into a product. And without that, we would not have anything from the internet to GLP-1s. And all of those things were made possible by the risky science that scientists funded by the government do, where it's not clear, is there going to be a profit to be made? Is there going to be a product at the end of the day? But it's because they're allowed to pursue crazy ideas sometimes that you end up with these amazing advances.
This is foundational science, so the ripple effects from missing out on this research now could reverberate for decades.
It takes about 10 years from the time somebody finishes their medical training until you start to see them having major medical discoveries. And so we may not realize what we've lost out on until 10 years from now. And by then, it will be too late.
Is it possible to get these scientists to come back once they've already moved their projects?
Well, we don't know, and it's a big deal to move, say, your lab. It's not just you and your family, it's all the people you work with. So if you talk about moving, a whole cluster of people and their families to try to then move again, that's a tall order. And, imagine you're moving your family, you have kids in school, do you want to disrupt them again? I think once people get settled in, it's going to be a tough call to bring them back.
Dr. Celine Gounder, thank you. The Friday before Memorial Day is known as Don't Friday. As summer heats up, skin cancer experts want you to think about sun safety because skin cancer is so common and cases are increasing. We hear from a dermatologic surgeon with how great the risks can be. These days, you'll find 66-year-old Teresa Stubbs under an umbrella at the beach, covered up and covered in sunscreen.
I put it on the face, I put it on the whole body that's going to be exposed. I've got the hat on, I've got sunglasses on. It's healing so well.
She had plenty of sunburns as a kid, which led to several non-melanoma skin cancers over the last 25 years, 4 in just the last few months.
If you notice a change like that or anything different, you really have to get it looked at.
One blistering sunburn can double your risk of skin cancer.
Dermatologic surgeon Dr. Nicole Golbari at NYU Langone Health says protection starts with a water-resistant broad-spectrum sunscreen that blocks UVA and UVB rays. She also recommends tinted sunscreen, which has iron oxide in it.
Having a tinted sunscreen protects not just against the ultraviolet light, but also against the visible light. The visible light is what can cause hyperpigmentation of the skin, excess aging of the skin.
Also choose a sunscreen with an SPF of at least 30.
I prefer my patients don't wear SPF 100 one time a day. It's more about wearing SPF 30 multiple times a day. Reapplication is key.
Teresa's skin cancers were taken out through Mohs surgery, a procedure that allows Dr. Golbari to take as little of the skin as possible while removing the entire cancer.
All of those have helped us be more precise in our diagnoses and our treatment and ultimately lead to better patient satisfaction, less scarring, and earlier detection.
I love the sun, but you do have to take precautions.
As for Teresa, she's grateful her skin cancers are being detected early, and she says you can still have fun in the sun, just protect yourself. A Minnesota grandmother was the picture of health until a surprising diagnosis. Healthy and active her whole life, heart failure sidelined her. But as Barrett Leone shows us, technology has now given her a new chance.
Venice there. Greece there. Nancy Rajanen is a bit of an art aficionado. Each country she visits with her husband Greg, she adds to her collection.
It also gives me a memory.
The international decor also serves as a reminder to live fully. Because more than a decade ago, the world traveler started experiencing shortness of breath.
It was such a surprise.
At first, she thought it was asthma, but it was heart failure.
I don't smoke, I'm not overweight, I don't have diabetes, I don't, I exercise, I eat well. So it was like, how can that be?
We referred her to the university for a possible heart transplant because her heart was that weak.
mHealth Fairview cardiologist Dr. Eric Ernst says it never got to that point, though. Despite managing her symptoms with medications, they were still unpredictable.
What we do sometimes in that situation is we implant a device called a CardioMEMS device.
It's a remote monitoring device to help doctors manage Nancy's heart failure. Once a week, Nancy lays down on a special pillow.
That little sensor inside the chest communicates wirelessly with the sensor that's implanted in a pillow.
And the pillow sends her scans directly to her care team, allowing medication adjustments in real time.
The fact that I'm able to live a full life remotely, anywhere that I want to, and know that I still have that protection, that somebody's keeping an eye on my heart for me, that's kind of life-changing.
The 70-year-old is back to her active routine and staying out of the hospital. Barrett Leone, CBS News, Minneapolis.
After the break, the common mental health issues after giving birth and the medical advances that are helping women with lupus. Welcome back. Research shows 800,000 women suffer with mental health issues during and after pregnancy every year, but only 25% receive treatment. During this Maternal Mental Health Month, Danya Backus introduces us to a mother and an organization working to erase the stigma.
Uno, dos.
Giovanni Figueroa finds joy in motherhood with her 2-year-old daughter, but there was a time when she wondered if this day would ever come.
It's been a beautiful experience, but also a very difficult one.
Around 2 months after giving birth, she says she was crying all the time and having thoughts that would frighten her.
I didn't have the will to do anything, the desire to enjoy anything. Everything was sadness.
According to the Policy Center for Maternal Health, 1 in 5 mothers experience mental health disorders just before or after birth, ranging from depression and anxiety to post-traumatic stress. Social, cultural, and economic levels increase the risk for Latina and Hispanic women.
We help them understand that none of that is their fault, that they're actually going through some transitions as they're also navigating being a parent.
Carla Cardoza is a marriage and family therapist who works with Postpartum Support International, providing support and increasing awareness about the emotional changes moms experience.
When symptoms are lingering, such as lack of interest, maybe sadness, like just a lot of sadness, crying, having a difficulty sleeping, difficulty taking care of themselves, maybe having intrusive thoughts, it is important to take action.
Giovanni joined a virtual support group led by Carla. She says connecting with other mothers who understood what she was going through helped.
I understood it was going to be a process. There were going to be changes in me, but I'd be okay in the future.
She shares her experience so families know they do not have to suffer alone. Danya Backus, CBS News, Los Angeles.
May is also Lupus Awareness Month, bringing attention to the chronic autoimmune disease that mostly affects women. Lupus can increase the risk for complications while pregnant, but now more than ever, doctors are able to help women achieve successful, healthy pregnancies. We hear from a woman that's been managing her disease while growing her family. 2-year-old Gabriella proudly wears this shirt. Her mom is a lupus warrior. Kiana Cornejo has been living with the autoimmune disease since she was just 11 years old.
When I first got diagnosed, I felt like I was paralyzed at one point. I couldn't do anything. Everything was just hurting.
Common symptoms include fever, rashes, joint pain and swelling, and hair loss. Some medications for lupus are not safe for pregnancy, something Kiana worried about when she found out she was expecting, which was not planned.
I immediately called the doctor. I was terrified.
Their pregnancies are not like the average pregnancy. Between the risk of active disease and sometimes the risk of the medications that they need to take.
Rheumatologist Dr. Lisa Samaritano at Hospital for Special Surgery says the prognosis for a woman with lupus to have a successful pregnancy is better than it's ever been.
Having quiet disease before one becomes pregnant is perhaps the best thing you can do. They really have to plan, sometimes even years ahead of time, so that they have quiet disease on medicines that are safe to take during pregnancy.
The dosage on some of Kiana's medications was lowered, and both mom and baby were monitored closely. Her lupus symptoms remained stable.
I felt healthy until after I gave birth to her.
Kiana's been dealing with a major flare-up since then.
The symptoms I'm having now are worse than before. I'm losing a lot of hair. I'm getting a lot of headaches. I'm very tired. Going through a very tough time to kind of deal with these symptoms now.
She's working with her doctors to try to manage her disease and be able to enjoy more time with her family. That's Eye on Health for this week. I'm Bradley Blackburn. Thanks for joining us, and be well.